Okay, so by now you've heard that Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire. This was after 15 months of brutal warfare that threatened to throw the region into an even bigger conflict. A war in which over 40,000 Palestinians have died, probably even more than that to be fair. In Israel, over 1,000 people were killed on October 7th and 250 more were taken hostage. It's been a brutal war. Historically, the war didn't even start on October 7th, 2023, but obviously it became a big story after the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023. So there's a history there that we won't get into in this video. Anyways, it is truly monumental to hear that a ceasefire deal has been reached. Here's what Joe Biden had to say when he announced the ceasefire today.
Secretary of State, let's listen.
Good afternoon. It's a very good afternoon, because at long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. For more than 15 months of conflict that began with Hezbollah's brutal massacre on October the 7th, more than 15 months of terror for the hostages, their families, the Israeli people, more than 15 months of suffering by the innocent people of Gaza. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families. The elements of this deal were what I laid out in detail this past May, which was embraced by countries around the world and endorsed overwhelmingly by the UN Security Council. The deal is structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 will last 6 weeks. It includes a full and complete ceasefire, withdrawal of Israeli forces from all the populated areas of Gaza, and the release of a number of hostages held by Hamas, including women and elderly and the wounded. And I'm proud to say Americans will be part of that hostage release in Phase 1 as well. And the Vice President and I cannot wait to welcome them home. In exchange, Israel released hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. And during Phase 1, the Palestinians can also return to their neighborhoods in all the areas of Gaza. And the surge of humanitarian assistance into Gaza will begin. And the innocent people can have a greater access to these vital supplies. You know, during the next 6 weeks, Israel will negotiate the necessary arrangements to get Phase 2, which is a permanent end of the war. Let me say it again, a permanent end of the war. There are a number of details to negotiate to move from Phase 1 to Phase 2, but the plan says if negotiations take longer than 6 weeks, the ceasefire will continue as long as the negotiations continue.
Okay, so Trump has also posted about the ceasefire on Truth Social. Naturally, I'll read you what he said right here. So I've got the quotes right here. So Trump says, "This epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. I am thrilled that American and Israeli hostages will be returning home to be united with their families and loved ones. With this deal in place, my national security team, through the efforts of our special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, will continue to work closely with Israel and our allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. We will continue promoting peace through strength throughout the region as we build upon the momentum of this ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords. This is only the beginning of great things to come for America and indeed the world. We have achieved so much without even being in the White House. Just imagine all the wonderful things that will happen when I return to the White House and my administration is fully confirmed so they can secure more victories for the United States." Okay, so that's what Donald Trump obviously had to say. But along the line here, it kind of occurred to me, it is so weird that we're even going to talk about this. And this is perhaps a big indicator of where America is as a country right now. Who gets the credit for this ceasefire? Obviously, you've heard Biden take credit for it in his speech, and you've seen Trump here clearly come forward and say, well, it was me. But who gets the credit? So we've got 2 presidents here fighting over who gets credit for ending the war. Biden says the ceasefire that was agreed was based on a framework that he proposed. And Trump says his election and his looming shadow is the reason both parties relented. Did I mention the ceasefire, while it sounds nice, is actually temporary? Biden, in his speech, also said that the ceasefire will continue as long as negotiations continue. But it is pretty big for those, for what it's worth. It's crazy. While we're debating who gets credit here, I think you should take a moment to appreciate that this is pretty big for those people in Gaza who have really suffered through this war. Humanitarian aid can now start to flow in. That would be really good to see. Also, with the release of the Israeli hostages, those families can start to be made whole again somehow. I don't know how you kind of come back from all of this. There's so much death and destruction everywhere, right? But yeah, you've got two presidents claiming credit for ending the war. I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy that even this, with so many people's lives at stake here, even this can be made into political fodder like this. It's wild to me. And it isn't just foreign affairs as well. Even the devastating California wildfires were the subject of political jousting as well, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. Because California is such a democratic state, you get Republicans going, well, having zero sympathy for people in California sometimes. It's a little strange. It's a strange time in politics right now in the US. I will say this. I don't think Trump gets to claim credit for this. Because think about it. Trump gets inaugurated in 5 days. Do you really believe that if he was in the driving seat of the negotiations, that he would let a deal be done before he takes office? Like, come on, that would be silly. Like, that would make no sense. Because in getting the deal done now, like, Biden gets to take credit for that. There's no way that Trump can take credit for ending the war. At the same time, though, while Biden probably brokered an end to the war, he has also sat there for 15 months and continued to support Israel through what can only be described as a genocide. And that's why this idea of taking credit is so ridiculous. Did you see the smug smile on Biden's face? The smile on his face was like, yeah, this is my legacy. You do realize, again, 40,000 people, probably a lot more than that, have probably died in this war. Man, I feel like I'm living in a dystopian future. Anyways, you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. And subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.